My friends, I need you to understand something tonight. Witches do not fear your personality. They do not fear your degree. They do not fear your family background. What they fear, what truly shakes the kingdom of darkness, is when you discover who you are and operate in that authority. Because the greatest nightmare to any power of darkness is a human being who has realized they were created with dominion. Witches thrive in secrecy, manipulation, and deception. They work best when you don't know who you are, when you walk around insecure, when you live blind to your purpose. But the moment you step into revelation, the moment you walk with conviction, the moment you speak not with fear but with authority, they tremble. Why? Because light does not negotiate with darkness, light destroys it. Don't get caught up thinking witchcraft is about spells, candles, or charms. That's not the real power. The real power they have is influence over your mind, fear, intimidation, and doubt. If you cancel fear, you cancel their hold. If you establish faith, you establish victory. If you walk in your God-given identity, you crush their strategies before they ever take form. Listen to me carefully. A witch fears a man or woman who is disciplined. They fear consistency. They fear prayer that is constant. They fear words that are filled with truth. Because when you stand on truth, deception cannot penetrate you. When you are filled with discipline, distraction cannot seduce you. And when you are filled with courage, intimidation becomes powerless. So I came to tell you today, you don't need charms to break their power. You don't need revenge. You don't need anger. You need understanding. Because once you understand, you are dangerous. The greatest warfare is not outside of you, it is inside of you. And once you master yourself, the enemy has no room to master you. The witch fears those who know their assignment. The witch fears those who live with integrity. The witch fears those who will not bow to peer pressure. And the witch fears those who know that every time darkness rises, light rises greater. You are not the victim. You are the weapon. And the greatest power you can ever wield is clarity, faith, and unshakable confidence in your identity. So hear me, witches do not win because they are powerful. They win when you are ignorant. But when you know, when you stand, when you walk in your dominion, they fear you. And when they fear you, they run. Witches don't fear your name. They fear your knowledge of who you are. Darkness cannot dominate where light is established. Witchcraft feeds on ignorance, fear, and doubt. The moment you cancel fear, you cancel their power. Discipline and consistency are spiritual weapons against manipulation. Truth destroys deception every single time. Witches fear those who walk in purpose and clarity. The greatest battlefield is not outside, it is inside your mind. Dominion is the natural state of humanity when aligned with divine order. You are not the target, you are the authority, and that authority destroys their schemes. My friends, let me make something very clear to you. Witches don't fear your name, they fear your knowledge of who you are. You can walk into a room with the loudest introduction. You can carry a title that impresses people. You can have followers clapping for you. But if you yourself are ignorant of your identity, you are no threat to the powers of darkness. Your name may echo in the ears of men, but it does not echo in the spirit world until you discover who you truly are. The most dangerous person on earth is not the one who carries a weapon. It is the one who carries awareness of their divine authority. Now understand this. Your name is a label, but your identity is authority. The enemy doesn't fear labels, the enemy fears authority. A label can be given by society, by culture, by family, even by your circumstances. They can call you poor, they can call you weak, they can call you ordinary, they can call you by the mistakes of your past. But once you recognize who you are at the core, once you accept that you were designed with dominion in your DNA, no label can hold you back. That realization is the key that witches fear, because it strips them of the only leverage they have over you: ignorance. Think about it. A prince who doesn't know he's a prince can live like a beggar. He can walk the streets searching for food, while the palace table has been waiting for him all along. The witches of this world don't care about the crown on his head if he doesn't know how to wear it. But the day he discovers his identity, the entire atmosphere shifts. He no longer asks for permission to eat. He takes his rightful place at the table. This is why darkness works so hard to keep you confused about yourself. Because as long as you are blind to your identity, you are harmless. This is why fear, doubt, and intimidation are the enemy's favorite tools. If they can keep you questioning your worth, then you will never step into your authority. If they can make you compare yourself to others, you will always think you're less than. If they can make you feel unworthy, you will silence your own voice. But the moment you understand that you are not here by accident, that you were designed for purpose, then you begin to speak differently, walk differently, and think differently. That's when fear begins to tremble at you, not the other way around. Let me tell you something. Hell does not fear talent, it fears identity. There are countless talented people, gifted people, smart people, but still powerless against the schemes of darkness because they have not connected their gift to their true self. When you don't know who you are, your gift can be manipulated, your potential can be exploited. But when you know your gift becomes a weapon, when you know your voice carries weight, when you know your presence itself becomes a rebuke to darkness. This is why you must guard your mind. You must protect your awareness of who you are, because everyday life will try to redefine you. People will tell you you're not enough. Your past will whisper that you can't rise. Your failures will try to mock you. But when you live by the truth of your identity, you can look at every lie and say, "That's not me." And when witches see that they cannot redefine you, they begin to fear you. Because witches cannot bind a man or woman who already knows they are free. They cannot curse someone who knows they are already blessed. They cannot intimidate someone who knows their life has divine backing. So hear me well. The battle is not about your name. It's about your knowledge of yourself. That's what makes you untouchable. That's what makes you dangerous. And that's why witches fear you. My friends, listen carefully. Darkness cannot dominate where light is established. That principle is eternal, unchanging, and undeniable. You've never once seen light enter a room and ask darkness for permission to shine. You've never once seen light negotiate with shadows. The moment light appears, darkness has no choice but to retreat. It doesn't matter how long the room has been dark. It doesn't matter how thick the darkness seemed. The instant light arrives, the rule changes. And that is why witches fear the presence of true light. You see, darkness only exists where light is absent. It thrives in emptiness, in silence, in ignorance, in confusion. But once light is introduced, once understanding truth and clarity step into a life, darkness loses its grip. The power of darkness is not in its strength, but in the ignorance of those who allow it space. As long as the room is unlit, shadows dance freely. But when the lamp is turned on, the shadows disappear, not because they decided to, but because they cannot exist in the same space as light. This is why witches don't want you to know the power of light. They want you to think darkness is stronger, more mysterious, more terrifying. They want you to live intimidated, convinced that evil is unstoppable. But the truth is, evil survives only because good people leave their lights hidden. The moment you decide to live as light, through clarity, faith, wisdom, and integrity, darkness begins to crumble. Witches fear those who turn the light on, because their influence cannot survive exposure. Think about this. When you walk into a dark room, you don't fight the darkness, you don't shout at it, you don't wave your hands hoping it will disappear. All you do is flip a switch, and the light effortlessly displaces what was there. That is how powerful knowledge and understanding are. You don't have to wrestle with lies. You only need to know the truth. You don't have to scream at confusion. You only need to live with clarity. Darkness is not defeated through struggle. It is defeated through presence. Light carries presence, and presence is power. And what is light? Light is awareness. Light is wisdom. Light is revelation. Light is the moment you recognize who you are, what you carry, and what you're capable of. The darkness of intimidation cannot survive when you stand tall in your identity. The darkness of fear cannot last when you choose faith over panic. The darkness of manipulation cannot stand when you refuse to be deceived. Wherever you establish light, you establish dominion. This is why witches prefer to keep their activities hidden. They love secrecy, because darkness protects their illusions. But once you expose them, once you bring things into the open, once you speak truth to what has been lurking in silence, their power evaporates. Their fear is not of your personality, it's of your light. Because your light forces them out of hiding. Your light unmasks their deception. Your light silences their intimidation. And hear me, this is not about how much light you think you have. Even a small candle can break the power of a vast darkness. One spark can change the entire atmosphere. Never underestimate the little light you carry. Witches fear even the beginning of awareness, because once you see, you can never unsee. Once you know, you can never unknow. That's why your journey of growth, your discipline of wisdom, your pursuit of understanding, these are not small things. They are weapons. Every time you choose growth over ignorance, you are establishing more light, and darkness is losing more ground. So if darkness cannot dominate where light is established, then your job is not to fight the shadows. Your job is to turn on the light. Don't spend your life wrestling with fear. Illuminate it with faith. Don't exhaust yourself trying to silence lies. Replace them with truth. Don't get distracted trying to chase away intimidation. Stand firm with clarity, and intimidation will have no place to land, because light does not ask darkness to leave. Light makes it leave. And this is the secret witches don't want you to understand. Their strength is only in spaces where people refuse to shine. But once you choose to live as light, once you decide to walk in your authority, once you stand in truth without apology, they have no power over you. That is why darkness cannot dominate where light is established. Witchcraft feeds on ignorance, fear, and doubt. That's the only soil it can survive in. Just like a plant cannot grow without the right environment, darkness cannot thrive unless it finds ignorance to hide in, fear to control with, and doubt to poison the mind. You take those three things away, and suddenly what looked like power begins to crumble before your eyes. Ignorance is the first weapon. When you don't know who you are, when you don't know what belongs to you, when you don't know the authority you carry, you become vulnerable. The enemy doesn't have to defeat you, he just has to keep you uninformed. A person who doesn't know their inheritance will never claim it. A person who doesn't know the laws of the kingdom will never enforce them. Witches thrive in environments where people are kept blind, where truth is hidden, where minds are too distracted to search for clarity. The less you know, the easier you are to manipulate. And that's why the greatest danger in life is not what you don't have. It's what you don't know. Fear is the second weapon. Fear is the invitation for control. Witches survive by intimidation. They whisper threats, they create atmospheres of terror, they exaggerate their influence. And when you believe their whispers, you empower their strategies. Fear makes you surrender authority without a fight. Fear makes you run from shadows as if they were giants. Fear makes you forget who you are, because it magnifies what looks against you while minimizing what is within you. That's why fear is called the language of darkness. It paralyzes you, it silences you, and it blinds you to your own strength. And then there's doubt. Doubt is subtle, but powerful. Doubt doesn't shout, it whispers. Doubt says, maybe you're not really capable. Maybe you're not really protected. Maybe your purpose isn't that important. Maybe all this talk about dominion and authority doesn't apply to you. And if you let doubt linger, it drains your confidence. Doubt is the termite that eats away at the foundation of your faith. Once your confidence is gone, your authority is compromised. That's why witches love doubt, because doubt opens the door for fear, and fear multiplies ignorance. Together they create the perfect storm. But here's the truth. They only win when you feed them. Ignorance is defeated by knowledge. The moment you commit to learning, to understanding, to searching for truth, ignorance loses its grip. Fear is defeated by faith. The moment you choose to believe in the greater power within you rather than the threats around you, fear loses its voice. Doubt is defeated by conviction. The moment you stand firm in what you know, refusing to entertain the whispers, doubt dies in silence. The weapons they use are weak when exposed to light. They only look strong when they operate unchallenged. Think about a child in the dark. To that child, the shadows on the wall look like monsters. The noises outside the window sound like threats. Fear becomes real even though nothing is there. The only thing needed to destroy that illusion is to turn on the light. Suddenly, the monsters disappear. The sounds lose their grip. The child realizes there was nothing to be afraid of. That's exactly how witchcraft works. It's only as strong as your ignorance, your fear, and your doubt allow it to be. Turn on the light of understanding and the illusion is broken. This is why you must train your mind. Never stop growing, never stop learning, never stop seeking wisdom. Because wisdom is light and light keeps you untouchable. Fill your heart with courage, even when fear tries to rise. Because courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision not to bow to it. And strengthen your conviction daily, because conviction silences doubt before it takes root. When you do this, the soil of your life becomes uninhabitable for witchcraft. Witches are not afraid of those who carry charms or shout louder. They are afraid of those who are informed, fearless, and unshakable in conviction. Because those are the people who cannot be manipulated. Those are the people who cannot be intimidated. Those are the people who cannot be deceived. And when you reach that place, their strategies collapse. So remember this. Witchcraft only survives on ignorance, fear, and doubt. And when you remove those three, you remove their power. The moment you cancel fear, you cancel their power. That's how simple it is, and yet how profound. Fear is the oxygen of darkness. It is what gives life to intimidation, what energizes manipulation, what empowers witchcraft to function. Without fear, their threats are empty, their words have no weight, their presence has no influence. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a doorway. And the moment you shut that door, their access is cut off. You see, fear magnifies things that have no real strength. It makes shadows look like giants. It makes whispers sound like roars. It makes small obstacles appear like walls too high to climb. Fear is not the reality. It is the distortion of reality. And that distortion is what witches feed on. They don't need to physically touch you. All they need to do is convince you to surrender within. When you give in to fear, you hand them the authority they could never take by themselves. But the moment you cancel fear, the illusion collapses, and so does their grip. Fear was never meant to govern your life. Fear was never meant to dictate your decisions. Fear is an intruder, an invader. It is the weapon darkness uses when it cannot face light directly. That's why you notice fear always comes first. Before any great decision, before stepping into your purpose, before breaking an old cycle, you feel fear. Why? Because if fear can stop you at the door, you'll never enter the room. If fear can paralyze you at the threshold, you'll never step into the place of authority where you were meant to operate. And that's what witches rely on. They don't have the power to stop you. They only try to convince you to stop yourself. But let me tell you the truth, fear is fragile. It only works if you agree with it. It only grows if you feed it. Fear has no foundation until you choose to give it one. When you stand up against fear, when you choose courage even with trembling hands, when you declare with your actions that you will not bow, suddenly fear loses its bite. It cannot hold you unless you let it. That's why the moment you cancel fear, you cancel their power. Consider this. Imagine a barking dog behind a fence. If you don't know the fence is there, you'll run. The bark will terrify you. But the moment you realize that dog is chained, the bark loses its power. Did the dog stop barking? No. Did the noise stop? No. What changed was your awareness. Fear works the same way. It is chained, it is limited, it is powerless against you. But if you don't know that, the bark will chase you for years. Once you recognize the chain, you stop running. And when you stop running, the fear collapses. That's why courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear lead. Courage says, I hear the bark, but I'm not running. Courage says, I feel the trembling, but I'm still stepping forward. Courage says, I see the shadows, but I know who I am. And when you live like that, fear has no place to land. Witches depend on fear to control, but courage cancels their power completely. The moment you choose courage over fear, your voice changes. You stop speaking with hesitation, and you begin to speak with authority. You stop walking with uncertainty, and you begin to walk with purpose. And authority is what they fear, because authority cannot be manipulated. Authority cannot be deceived. Authority cannot be threatened. Fear makes you small, but courage makes you stand tall. And when you stand tall, their influence dies. So if you truly want to destroy the power of witches, don't waste your energy fighting shadows. Don't exhaust yourself trying to chase away every noise. Focus on canceling fear. Because once fear is gone, there's nothing left for them to hold on to. Fear is their currency, and when you bankrupt it, their economy collapses. So remember this: the moment you cancel fear, you cancel their power. Discipline and consistency are spiritual weapons against manipulation. You see, witches do not fear people who are emotional one day and distracted the next. They are not intimidated by people who are passionate in the moment, but unstable in the long run. What truly frightens them is the individual who is disciplined, the one who has built the habit of strength, the one who wakes up every day with the same focus, the same clarity, the same commitment. Because discipline closes the door to weakness, and consistency keeps it locked. Discipline is the ability to say no when everything around you tempts you to say yes. It's the strength to choose purpose over pleasure, to choose focus over distraction, to choose growth over comfort. When you are disciplined, you don't fall into every trap. You don't believe every lie. You don't bend to every influence. And that frustrates those who live off manipulation. Witches survive by pulling strings, by tugging at your emotions, by creating chaos in your routine. But when they meet someone steady, someone who doesn't react to every little push, someone who has built self-control, they lose their power. Consistency adds another layer. It's one thing to do something once, it's another to keep doing it every single day until it becomes your lifestyle. Anybody can be strong for a moment, but strength becomes unshakable when it is repeated until it's natural. That's why witches hate consistency, because consistency creates patterns of victory. When you are consistent in truth, lies cannot find a home. When you are consistent in focus, distractions eventually give up. When you are consistent in faith, fear has no room to settle. And think about it, manipulation only works on those who are unstable. It thrives where there is inconsistency. If your words change today and tomorrow, they can twist your speech. If your actions shift depending on your emotions, they can play with your feelings. If your focus drifts depending on who is around you, they can lure you away. But when you are consistent, there's nothing to twist, nothing to pull, nothing to exploit. You are steady, and that steadiness becomes your shield. Discipline and consistency also build authority in your own life. When you say you'll do something and you follow through, you begin to trust yourself. That trust grows into confidence. That confidence turns into authority. And authority is what darkness cannot handle, because authority is the expression of dominion. It's not about shouting louder, it's about being rooted deeper. Witches may attempt to create storms around you, but if your roots are disciplined and consistent, the storm cannot move you. You may bend, but you won't break. Look at nature. The sun rises every morning without fail. It doesn't rise at 7 a.m. today and 1 p.m. tomorrow. It doesn't show up when it feels like it. Its consistency sustains life on earth. Imagine if it weren't consistent. Chaos would take over the world. That's the power of consistency. It holds everything together. In the same way, when your life carries that rhythm of discipline and consistency, chaos cannot control you. Manipulation cannot destabilize you. Darkness cannot invade you. And let's be honest, discipline is not easy. Consistency is not glamorous. But that's exactly why it's powerful. Because few are willing to walk that road. Most people want quick results, easy escapes, immediate gratification. That's where manipulation sets its traps. But the disciplined person is patient. The consistent person is steady. And that steadiness makes them dangerous to anyone trying to pull strings in the shadows. So when witches look at someone who has mastered discipline, they see someone who cannot be bought, someone who cannot be bribed, someone who cannot be distracted. When they look at someone who is consistent, they see someone who cannot be stopped, someone who will outlast intimidation, someone who will stand until the darkness wears itself out. That's why discipline and consistency are not just habits, they are spiritual weapons. And if you want to dismantle the power of manipulation in your life, don't just pray for strength in the moment. Build discipline, live with consistency, because those two together create a fortress that no witch, no scheme, no darkness can penetrate. So remember this: discipline and consistency are spiritual weapons against manipulation. Truth destroys deception every single time. That is the foundation witches don't want you to realize. Deception is their strongest weapon, but it is also their weakest because it cannot survive once truth enters the room. A lie has no life of its own. It only lives as long as it is believed. The moment truth is revealed, the lie dissolves. That is why witches thrive in secrecy, in confusion, in smoke and mirrors. They present illusions to make you think they have power, but those illusions collapse the second you stand on truth. Deception works by keeping you uncertain, by making you doubt what is real. Think about a magician on stage. He doesn't perform miracles, he performs tricks. He thrives because the audience doesn't know where to look. While your eyes are distracted by one hand, the other hand is creating the illusion. Witchcraft works in the same way. It diverts your attention, it creates smoke, it magnifies shadows, and it convinces you that something false is true. But once the curtain is pulled back, once you see clearly, once you know what is really happening, the entire illusion is broken. And that is what truth does. It pulls back the curtain. This is why truth is not just information, it is liberation. You can have knowledge but still live in deception if you don't apply it as truth. Truth is what stabilizes your heart and mind. Truth is what tells you, this shadow is just a shadow. Truth is what reminds you, this noise has no power over you. Truth is what says, what they threatened is not greater than the authority you already carry. The reason witches fear truth is because once you are anchored in it, they can no longer manipulate you. And let me tell you this, deception always looks powerful until it is exposed. That's why secrecy is its shield. Witches know they cannot operate in the open, because in the open their weakness is visible. They depend on confusion, and they depend on your ignorance. But once you know truth, once you live in truth, deception can no longer hold you captive. It's like waking up from a dream. In the dream, the danger feels real, the chase feels intense, the fear feels overwhelming. But the moment you wake up, you realize none of it had substance. Truth wakes you up from the nightmare of deception. Now here is the key. Truth must be consistent. It's not enough to know truth today and forget it tomorrow. Witches don't mind if you hear the truth once. They fear when you live by it daily. Because when truth becomes your standard, your mindset changes. You stop reacting to every whisper. You stop panicking at every shadow. You stop believing every word spoken against you. Instead, you measure everything against what you know is real. And when you live like that, deception cannot enter. You see, lies are fragile, but they are persuasive if you don't know better. That's why your greatest defense is to continually fill yourself with truth. The more you know, the less space deception has. The more you practice truth, the more your instincts recognize when something doesn't align. This is why some people can sense manipulation immediately. It's because they've trained themselves to live by truth. And witches fear those people because their deception collapses before it even begins. Think of it like this. A counterfeit bill only looks valuable until you put it against the real thing. Once you hold it beside the genuine note, the flaws are obvious. That's how deception works. It only survives when there's no truth to compare it to. But when truth is present, the counterfeit is exposed. This is why truth doesn't just protect you. It empowers you. It doesn't just defend you. It equips you. When you walk in truth, you don't just avoid deception, you dismantle it. So never underestimate the power of truth. Speak it. Live it. Stand in it. Because truth is not passive, it is active. It confronts lies, it breaks illusions, it destroys manipulation. And once you carry it, you don't need to argue with deception, your very presence exposes it. That is why witches cannot stand against someone rooted in truth, because deception has no chance where truth is alive. So remember this, truth destroys deception every single time. Fear is the easiest weapon the enemy uses, and it is the most effective doorway through which darkness gains control. That is why those who operate in secret, those who practice manipulation through unseen powers, thrive on intimidation. They know that the moment you believe you are powerless, you surrender your authority without a fight. Fear is not just an emotion. It is a faith in the wrong direction. It is faith in the possibility of destruction instead of faith in the certainty of victory. That is why fear is so dangerous, because it silently reprograms your belief system, convincing you that you are vulnerable when in truth you are already covered, already secured, already protected by something far greater than whatever they threaten you with. What fear does is create an illusion, a picture in your mind that magnifies the threat while shrinking your confidence. Have you noticed that fear always exaggerates? When you face a challenge, fear doesn't show you the truth. It paints a worst-case scenario. Fear whispers that you will fail, that you will be destroyed, that you have no chance. And once you accept those whispers, you empower the very thing you are afraid of. That's why the moment you entertain fear, you become a co-creator with it, building a reality that was never meant to exist in your life. You hand over your own strength to the very thing that oppresses you. But here's the truth. Fear has no substance of its own. It cannot stand by itself. It needs your agreement. It needs your belief. Darkness has no power unless you grant it through fear. That is why the moment you choose courage, the moment you decide to stand firm, fear collapses like a shadow when light enters the room. Shadows look frightening, but they are powerless in the presence of light. And you are that light when you walk in authority. Many people do not realize that fear is actually a strategy designed to paralyze your decisions. If you are afraid, you hesitate. If you hesitate, you don't move. And if you don't move, you remain stuck in the very place the enemy wants you. Intimidation is not about strength. It's about keeping you inactive. A lion only needs to roar to freeze its prey in fear. It doesn't even have to attack immediately. In the same way, those who use fear as a weapon don't need to touch you physically. They just need you to stop believing, to stop progressing, to stop speaking with authority. And once you stop, they have already won half the battle. The reason fear is such a destructive force is that it rewrites your perception of reality. You may be standing in safety, but fear convinces you that you are exposed. You may be walking in freedom, but fear tells you that you are trapped. It is a mental prison that convinces you the walls are stronger than they actually are. But here is the good news: fear can be dismantled by truth. Truth is like a key. It unlocks the illusions fear has built. The moment you remind yourself of who you really are, the moment you remind yourself of the covering and authority you carry, fear's hold is broken. That is why confidence is not arrogance. It is protection. Boldness is not pride. It is a weapon. When you stand tall in who you are, when you refuse to be intimidated, you strip the enemy of their greatest tactic. They cannot operate in your life if you refuse to cooperate with their intimidation. They can try, they can roar, they can create shadows, but if you walk in truth and courage, they collapse every time. The battle, then, is not against what you see, but against what you believe. That is why overcoming fear is not about denying danger. It is about refusing to give danger your belief. Yes, there may be threats. Yes, there may be challenges, but they do not define your outcome. Your outcome is secured by your authority, your protection, and your alignment with truth. So, the next time fear comes knocking, you don't run, you don't bow, you don't surrender. You answer with courage. Because the only power fear has is the power you give it. And when you choose courage over fear, intimidation loses its voice, and you walk free.